Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 98 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author and PR consultant and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing PR and marketing strategies for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, before we get into the main part of the show, I wanted to let you know about my online PR course and group coaching program, Vegans in the Limelight. It's ideal for small business owners, including authors, artists and creatives on a budget who understand the value of getting yourself or your vegan brand featured regularly in the media but can't afford to spend thousands of dollars or pounds a month to hire a publicist or PR firm. With Vegans in the Limelight, you get access to online video training that takes you through every step of how to get media coverage that can help you generate more leads and sales, as well as grow your email list and social media following. So we cover how PR and social media work in tandem, how to research and target the media without spending a cent, how to find the stories in your vegan brand on a regular basis, how to approach journalists the right way with ideas and stories, that's a really important one, how and when to write a media release, how to create an online media room for your website without spending heaps of time or money, how to respond to journalists' call-outs or queries, which is the easiest and quickest way to get media coverage and free publicity, content marketing and PR, so how to create your own share-worthy stuff and leverage it to the max, writing and content creation tips for opinion pieces, listicles, features and columns, speaking gigs and PR, so how to leverage events to gain media coverage, and interview tips for print, online, radio and TV. Now, as well as the video training, which you go through at your own pace over 12 months, the program also includes a full 12 months of group coaching, including a monthly live Q&A call. You can also post your questions throughout the year on the learning platform, and you can post your pitches and media releases and get feedback from me before you send them to journalists. So you've basically got me holding your hand, helping you to do your own PR for a full year. It's a great value program, it's way more affordable than similar courses, and it's the only one that's specifically aimed at vegan and plant-based business owners, entrepreneurs, authors, coaches and creators. Current students have already got media coverage in mainstream and specialist newspapers, magazines, radio and TV shows, as well as blogs and podcasts. So if you'd like to get your vegan brand or yourself featured in the media but don't have the budget to hire a publicist or PR agency, then I highly recommend you check out this program. You get full and immediate access to the materials as soon as you enroll. You can find out all the details by going to veganbusinessmedia.com and clicking on the link for the program Vegans in the Limelight. And there's also a link on the show notes page. And if you have any questions about the program, including whether it's right for you, feel free to email me at katrina@veganbusinessmedia.com. Now for the main part of the show. In this episode, I interviewed Jonathan Petrides, aka JP, from Allplants, a plant-based frozen food subscription service in the UK. JP is a serial entrepreneur passionate about building businesses that solve major global problems. He founded Africa's first and fastest growing mobile bank, M-Shwari, which now has more than 30 million users, most of whom previously had no access to a bank account, and issues more than 100,000 new loans each day. He also founded an award-winning retail health chain, Penda Health, in Kenya, bringing a new model for affordable mass-market healthcare to East Africa. After returning to the UK, he started Allplants with his brother Alex in January 2016, soft launching the first range of frozen plant-based meals to family and friends before rolling out the subscription-based service nationwide in January 2017. In May last year, Allplants secured £800,000 funding from Felix Capital. This was the first time the venture capital fund had invested in a plant-based startup and the largest amount raised for a European plant-based startup to date. In this interview, JP talks about the importance of testing concepts before committing to and launching a new business, the innovative way Allplants carried out recipe tests, the dangers of relying on grants or competitions to fund your business and why you shouldn't think of them as free money, how Allplants managed to raise £800,000 in investment funding, the most important thing you must have in place before approaching investors, how to know when you're ready for investment and the ideal situation to be in when preparing to do this, why he decided to make the company a B Corp, why talking openly and endlessly about your project in the early stages rather than keeping your ideas a secret is the key to success and attracting the right connections, and much more. Here's the interview with Jonathan Petrides from Allplants. Hello, JP, and welcome to the show. It's great having you on.
Hey, Katrina. Thanks so much for having me.
No, very excited to speak with you because you've got such an interesting and diverse business background and you've been involved in a number of groundbreaking businesses, which we'll find out a little bit more about. But your latest is Allplants. So tell us a little bit, because I always ask this, the very first question I ask all my guests is the why. Why do you do what you do and why are you doing Allplants?
Well, thanks for asking, Katrina. I guess the journey for myself and my brother Alex, which started just over 2 years ago, was one driven initially by utter frustration and a belief that there could be something better. So we were both, living and eating a vegan lifestyle and loved to cook. So we knew, given what we could create at home, just how delicious and nourishing meals you could make from all sorts of colourful grains, vegetables, etc. But we just found that there was simply nobody making that easy for you when you were busy, whether that meant you were on the go or you just didn't have time in an evening or morning to put something together. And so we started searching and experimenting, and that took us to New York particularly, which blew our little minds at that point. And we were like, wow, this is the future. If this is here, like, why can't we all have access to that? And imagine just how inspired so many more people would be to eat more plants and start making that shift and moving animal agriculture off their plate. So we're like, well, this is a no-brainer. We need to make delicious, creative food more accessible to everyone, because we believe that's what's going to ignite change. And that's kind of what we've been working on ever since.
Fantastic. And, and I love that because, it's interesting, I don't know what it is about guys, like, or guys of a particular age, you sort of millennial guys, because there's you and the Bosch guys, like, you all love cooking, which is fantastic. I'm completely the opposite. I'm almost allergic to kitchens. Like, the least time I can spend in the kitchen as possible, I'm happy. So I love the fact that this kind of thing is happening, because there are, like people like me who literally just, I just prefer to spend my time doing other things. And so I think it's such an innovative idea. And the easier we make it for people to eat plant-based and live vegan, the better. So I love what you guys are doing, and I love that your business was born out of a need and there was a gap in the market which you filled, which is absolutely
you're not unusual, Katrina, by the way. I think you're actually more typical, right? And the thing is that I was chatting to some friends last night, and what we're finding, and we've spoken to thousands and thousands of people across the UK now, continuously, to understand what we believe is a journey that everyone is on. And it's a journey from what is kind of like the classic, typical omnivorous Western diet to something new. But the challenge is that it feels like such a massive paradigm shift for people in terms of, what do I do at home? How do I how do I cook for my family, or how do I cook for myself? And if you don't have the time or the energy, or particularly the interest in experimenting in your kitchen, you're completely stuck.
Yeah.
And that's a real blocker for so many people who actually, as I would put it, they've got the will, they're compelled by whatever it might be, ethical reasons, environmental reasons, health reasons. They really want to do something, but they just don't know the way, and they need help to find those new ways.
Absolutely. I mean, I eat the same thing pretty much every day, which is basically a salad at lunch, a fresh fruit smoothie at breakfast, and then either some soup or a casserole that I'll have, either me, or if I can persuade my partner to make like 3 or 4 weeks worth of lentil and vegetable. So I eat the same. And for most people, they're like, oh my God, you eat the same thing. But I'm a really good lunch and dinner guest because I'm so grateful to have something different to eat, or going out to eat occasionally. So definitely can resonate. So tell us about, because I know you've got a strong business background, but obviously each business is different. And what were some of your challenges when you faced, when you were first started up the business? And I know you're still a very new company, you're still in startup phase, but what were some of the challenges in actually getting the business off the ground?
So I think, as with absolutely any early stage founder, the first and most important thing is to, once you've buttoned down on the problem you're trying to solve, is how are we actually going to impact this and make a big difference? And with a view to, as I explained earlier, trying to make delicious creative food available to everyone, and exciting for them. Initially, we couldn't really work out whether that meant building a restaurant chain, writing recipe books, or something else in between. And so I think, first of all, doing a lot of testing of concepts is what got us to the point when we realized actually it would be madness to spend the next year working hard to just open the doors to a single restaurant that can only serve a very limited number of people from a small radius.
Right.
Why don't we try to build a restaurant for the nation? And that's, that was an amazing step that it took us quite a while to work out. And, there were a lot of technological challenges and operational challenges that we had to work through to realize that. Most importantly, how to create really awesome handmade food and then keep it and deliver it to doorsteps all over the UK in a state that meant it was still great and easy to enjoy. And so that's how we kind of found our way into the amazing world of freezing, which is honestly, it's fantastic. And, the thing that we get asked a lot now, because we're getting a lot of supermarkets, the big ones and the small ones, coming to us and saying, hey, we need more exciting plant-based food in our aisles. Can you, when are you ready? We want it.
Cool.
And the encouragement often is and we'd love you in our fridge. We want it chilled. But the problem with if you take any prepared meal and imagine you or I, or perhaps not you, Katrina, maybe your partner, cooking it at home. In order for that to be available in a fridge anywhere around the country, it needs to have all sorts of other weird preservatives added to keep it at least available for 4 or 5 days. Whereas with freezing, you literally cook a beautiful meal, and the freezing itself is the preservative. You don't need to add anything unnatural. And so anyway, so that was the big challenge. And then after that, it's all about execution. And for us, execution is basically finding brilliant people who are passionate about what you're doing and have got the expertise or the drive, or sometimes both, to throw themselves at the daily challenges that you encounter while you're trying to make something come out of nothing.
Got it. So did you sort of work with experts who already knew how to, I'm guessing there are non-vegan meal delivery services in the UK. So did you sort of get the expertise of people like that knew what systems needed to be in place and how that could be executed?
Yeah. So I'm a great believer in not reinventing things that already exist. The idea of standing on the shoulders of giants and taking learnings that exist and then repurposing them. So in the first 6 months, I did my best to try and meet with every single person who'd ever built any meal delivery business in the UK and in the US, where fortunately a guy who used to work for me in Kenya was at Blue Apron, which is the HelloFresh of the States.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that was it was through Shazad that we actually found our insulation solution. They were using it to keep fish and meat cuts fresh in their recipe boxes for 24 to 48 hours in transit. And we then, through that, found this material that's compostable and made of recycled materials that actually keeps our food frozen for 24 to 36 hours when shipped in ambient vans, which means we don't have to have high cost and high environmental footprint frozen vehicles going all over the country. Which was
Oh,
really
nice.
So it's all about tracking down those experts and buying them a juice or a coffee and saying, hey, please, like, this is what we're doing. How would you go about it?
Got it. No, I love that. No, that's important. And I guess that you mentioned sort of the keeping the costs down as well as being environmentally conscious. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about funding and capital raising, because I know this is something you've had experience with your other businesses. So can you just tell us a little bit about the different types of funding you've used for your various businesses, sort of how you went about it, what the results were, and what you learned?
Well, this is, I'm going to try and be really brief about this because it's there's so much to this world. And it's probably worth me just briefly explaining, Katrina, what the couple of other ventures I built previously. So one, the first one where I kind of, after having spent 2 or 3 years in the professional world in kind of management consulting, I decided I wanted to try to create something to have impact. And that took me to Kenya, with a vision to try to provide a low cost and easy to access banking solution for the 90% of people who didn't have a bank account. Now that sounds like, why does everyone need a bank account? But actually the ability to save and borrow in really, really small increments is genuinely life-changing in an instance where you previously haven't been able to do that in a safe and a reliable way.
Right.
And so we did that, and we said, well, everyone's got mobile phones, let's do it through mobile. Now that was a big undertaking, and that whole venture, we funded it through a combination of innovation R&D grants and development grants. And so the early stage, like the concept development. So and we raised that off the back of a paper-based kind of proposal and a good team, and went to organisations like DFID in the UK, who fund particularly the extension of financial services, like effectively it's like trying to provide banking services for the lowest decile of the pyramid globally. And then also worked with MasterCard Foundation and a few other kind of similar groups like that. Then a second venture that's now actually owned and run by a bank and mobile operator in Kenya, and it's it found its niche, and it's now serving 30 million plus people a day.
Wow, that's amazing.
And by the way, that was not easy to realize, and we actually had to shut down the first version that we were building of it because of running out of money and not having the right regulatory clearances, and that's a whole story we could go into.
Right. Wow.
The second venture is Penda Health. So here we in a similar way found, having lived in Kenya, myself and a couple of friends, for 3 to 4 years, that it was absolutely incredible that the top kind of 2 or 3% of the population had access to the best healthcare I've ever experienced in my life. But everyone else, it was an unbelievable, it was like a crapshoot. Like, you just didn't know what you were going to get. And we found that 2/3 of people, when you asked them, would you go back to the last doctor you went to see, would say no, because they didn't trust them. They didn't feel like they'd been treated well. They had to wait for hours, etc. And so we wanted to create the friendliest, most affordable and highest quality family healthcare provider across Kenya. And that means building clinics or medical centers as they are now. And that is, first of all, given that the three of us had never worked in healthcare, quite a big undertaking. So initially we, for that, raised kind of family and friends funding to open our very first clinic, which actually on Valentine's Day we opened 7 years ago.
Wow.
And then after that, we genuinely spent, and this was largely one of the things I was focused on, about 18 to 24 months scrabbling around, trying to win competitions, applying for development grants. We put together a convertible debt kind of seed round, because nobody would give us equity because we were so risky, and and so we were literally cobbling together whatever funds we could find to be able to continue to prototype and try to create a new model for healthcare in Africa. And it took us a good 3 years, maybe 3.5 years, to reach the point where we actually felt that we'd created a great service model. We had shown big impact, and then at that stage we were able to then go down the more conventional route of raising equity investment. So that was that.
It's interesting. So quite some learning curves when I'm hearing this. You've really kind of got that. So what advice then would you give to other entrepreneurs, given what you've experienced and what you've learned, particularly with those two ventures, before we go on to talk about allplants?
Going into allplants, actually, I had a very clear few clear beliefs. One of them is that it's so vitally important that you only work with people who are truly aligned to your vision, and that's number one, and that is not negotiable. And I've seen that be very problematic, both for in these ventures, but then for so many friends' ventures as well, and it causes so much stress, but also can genuinely take things in the wrong direction and kind of ruin everything.
For sure.
And the second piece is that, I've just talked about the fact that we were literally cobbling things together. That can lead you to a place where you're running around chasing your tail endlessly.
I could just picture that as you were describing that. I could almost feel the tension, the stress that you must have felt doing that.
It was genuinely was, Katrina. And and for quite a while in the early days of Penda Health, the edge of the runway, as you refer to it, so that's like how many months worth of cash do you have to continue rolling, was never more than 6 months away, and it was often a lot closer than that.
Wow.
And that doesn't really afford you the space and ability to plan ahead and to really focus on your problem that you're trying to solve and the customer you're trying to serve. So that's the second thing that I think is really important to always remember, that okay, for example, trying to in the early days only go and get grants and win competitions, etc., seems like a great way to approach it, because a lot of people refer to it as free money in inverted commas, but it's not, because actually it takes so much effort to go about and applying to lots of these things, and then it also takes a lot of effort to report to them, because often what they're interested in are metrics that are different from the metrics that are core to the problem you're trying to solve. So it can create its own industry. And so, and it's so important in the early stages that all you're focused on is trying to create something that people want, and really be very focused on your product and on your, on who your customer is and how to delight everyone, because that's what matters.
I love that. That's such good advice about the grants and the development grants and everything, because like you say, you've got it. People think it's free. In terms of your time, it really isn't, is it? And then you've got to wait as well. Like I've had friends that have applied for grants, and then you just got to sit back and wait, because it might be months that you've got to wait, and then it might be a no, or like you say, you've got to jump through hoops, and then you've got to do all the paperwork. So that's interesting. I'm really glad that you've said that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of think, great, let's go for a grant and this, that, and the other. So I'm glad that you've given a reality check. So then with allplants then, so how did you do things differently? I mean, I know that with allplants, you actually secured, I think it was 800,000 UK pounds, which I believe was one of, if not the largest investment in a plant-based company in Europe. So tell us a bit about how you did things differently with allplants, and a bit about the investment and how you got it. Sure.
Well, so first of all, in the first year, we bootstrapped it. So my brother and I funded everything that we did. We obviously had to survive on fumes and hummus to keep ourselves alive, and we also had to really convince anyone from a company we were trying to buy a domain name from, or a law firm who were helping us write up our articles of association, or the agency and team who we built our first website with, that that this was going to be something really big, and so they should do it for a really small amount because they could have big impact, etc. So you really have to be sweat every single situation to try and really, really be very lean, and that's what we had to do. And when you're spending your own money and you don't have a lot of it, you really make damn sure of that.
Yeah. And JP, were you and Alex working like a day jobs, or had you like sort of got enough savings, if you don't mind me asking, like for you to manage
totally.
to be able to do that?
Totally. So I was full time from around March 16, and my brother was actually in the process of a couple of major projects where he was previously working, which is a company called Propercorn.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were growing all across Europe, and he was leading the close of a new round that they were raising there too. So he kind of had to stick around for 6 months and was kind of evenings and weekends with me and running the supper clubs and getting involved in the recipe development. And then he was able to leave around September. And in the meantime, we had a few development chefs join me in the kitchen and interns join us. And, we're gradually kind of building things like that. So super bootstrapped all the way through. And then we the key for us was that we had to get to a point where we truly prototyped and piloted what we were saying we were going to build, to be able to then show this is what it is. And that was true for the food and for what I talked about earlier, the actual delivering to doorsteps around the country, selling online, the whole shebang. It's kind of a simulation of what we wanted to become. Right. And so we launched that in October 16. And then kind of, I suppose, as a result of that, we were able to then say, okay, we take a breath in now. That's kind of working, although it was chaos behind the scenes, to actually to fulfill that. But, and from that point, we then said, okay, well, during that period, we were making sure to share and check in with all of our advisors or any previous mentors, etc., and and prime them for the fact that, of course, this was something we would love for them to be part of. And so then, we kind of started that conversation. And the crazy thing was that initially we figured that, we're crazy early stage. We haven't even officially launched. We've only sold a few hundred parcels. And so we'll probably need to raise just a very small amount to then get to the next proof stage. But it was incredible. The kind of the impetus that was created when we started having the conversation took us to a point where we'd initially planned to raise around 150 to 200K, it kind of just got vastly oversubscribed very quickly, with people who we already knew really well from a variety of different professional and personal relationships. And so we very quickly said, okay, hang on a second, maybe we should adjust our goal and make this something slightly more that gives us a slightly longer run at the next phase. And so we adjusted things through the next few months as we were then making sure that they were the right people. That was the other thing that was a key part of that phase. So kind of as we were having those conversations, we were realizing that this is exciting, but also we really need to make sure that every single person or group of people who are getting involved here really get our values and our ethics, and what we want this brand and this whole mission to become. So we're very, very clear about that up front with everyone. And we also realized that just saying it didn't really maybe do enough. And so we decided to take it to the next level by starting the process of becoming a B Corp. And that, most importantly, as a first step, meant building into our articles of association, literally into the legal documents that enshrine what allplants is and how it works, where we changed the typical clause around what the shareholders' responsibilities are, which is in 99.9% of companies globally is to maximize profit.
Yeah.
And we changed that to a balance between delivering returns on profit, for people and for planet. And that and those terms are something you can actually get from the B Corp. We can talk about B Corp, by the way, separately. But the Benefit Corporation movement have written these terms, and they make it very easy for you to incorporate them. And that was fantastic because it meant that we knew everyone was signing up for something that was very clear, and there was no confusion, which was really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think the B Corps are really interesting. I had with the VegFest UK panels that I hosted, I actually had someone from B Corp there to talk about that, like the importance of it or the benefits of it. And again, I know you have to there's some reporting involved, but like you say, it can really kind of prevent some things going awry down the track, that someone can't just turn around and say, oh, you're not making enough money, you need to add fish to your products. And if you've got that kind of built in, you're attracting the right people. So I think that's probably a good argument for going down that route, even though it's an extra hoop to jump through and paperwork and what have you. But when you're running a business for good or a mission driven business, and you're looking for investors, that's really important. And so it's interesting that you already kind of had made those connections with those people. So I'm curious, what advice would you use or would you offer someone who perhaps didn't necessarily have those connections that you had? How would they go about, getting to a point where they feel like they're ready for investment? And perhaps you can speak to, how do you know when you're ready for investment, or when does a company know it's ready for investment? And how would they go about sort of almost going at it cold, I suppose? So say they really don't know any investors per se at the moment.
Yeah, lots of questions. So I'm going to try and I'll try and approach. I'd say there's three things in there. So the first one, when do you know you're ready? Being very practical is when you're about to, when you look and see that you're about to run out of money, and so we better do something about this. But the ideal situation to be in, so a slight derivative of that, is that you've managed to conserve your cash to allow yourself, for the first stage of funding, to get to the point where you have a proof of concept and where you've proven this is something that people want. That's the most important thing at the early stage.
Right.
If you can prove that, and you can show some data to say, hey, look, we've created something and we've proven that people are interested in it, and ideally that some of them come back already. That's the most important thing in the early stage. If you can show that. And at the same time, you've already obviously very thoughtfully gone into a space where you think there's an opportunity to really have an impact, because there's a big empty space that needs addressing. Then that should be very compelling.
Right.
In terms of kind of the other thing, in terms of like, well, what do I do if I don't know anyone? I guess from the outset, when you are starting to work on an idea, one of the things that I think I couldn't encourage enough is a lot of people think that the best thing to do is to sit on your idea. Don't tell anyone, keep it cloak and dagger, keep it to your chest, because someone else might nab it.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree with that more. The value you get from openly talking endlessly, and sometimes too much and people complaining, but endlessly about what you're trying to do and the challenges and the vision, and just continuously trying to find the right people to advise you, to input on it, to maybe come and work with you, to maybe become your co-founder, whatever it is the best way to then, almost in an organic way, build a bubble, a network around this idea of people who are interested and want to help and want to support it. And the more you do that in the early stages, first of all, the more likely you are to get to a proof of concept stage. But secondly, that you can be guaranteed will almost organically spawn, oh, by the way, when you get to the right stage, I should totally introduce you to so-and-so, because they love supporting founders building things like this, or they know these guys who run a fund who tend to work on this space, and it's only by socializing the work you're doing and the idea that you're able to spawn those connections.
I love that. That's such good advice. And you're right. People do tend to go, oh, well, if I say what I'm doing, people will steal it. And I know that's the thing in Hollywood. But, at the end of the day, like you say, if you don't put it out there, then those people won't come into your life. And even if, because somebody will always know somebody. So I love that. That's really brilliant advice there. So just on the marketing side of things. So we're in the midst of this plant-based revolution. So obviously there's now more players in the arena, and particularly in your line of business, in the plant-based delivery service. You're probably, I don't know if you're the only one in the UK, or I think there's at least another one that started perhaps after you. So how do you go about standing out? And because there's also other companies like non-vegan companies literally kind of jumping on the vegan bandwagon and cashing in on the trend. So how do you go about standing out both against other vegan businesses or plant-based businesses and mainstream businesses and maintaining customers?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm so, and so is our whole team, so excited by the way that there's this, you could almost refer to it as a gold rush, which is fantastic. And to be honest, a lot of people get concerned about the idea of non-vegan run businesses starting to serve and create solutions for the problem. So, for example, they might be making a cheese that substitutes for, some people's addiction to cheese to help them move off dairy and onto plant-based, or milks or meals or whatever it is. And, I say, given our thesis on the problem, the more options that are quality and available, the better it is for the expansion of more plant-based living. And so, first of all, it's super exciting to see. We're really hype about it. In terms of, for us or for anyone, when you're creating something for your customers, either for new or for existing, the most important thing for us in food is our food, is our products. Our food has to be excellent, and we spend enormous amounts of time every day really perfecting and refining our recipes, and making sure that the flavors and the spicings and the herbs and the richness of a sauce, or the way that we roast and tear the jackfruit, that all of these things are done to the best level. And one of the most fantastic things for us is that because we are direct to our every single All Plants member, we're able to find out actually if we've done a good job, a great job, or actually if we've done a bad job. And learn from it. And so that's super important for us. And not just focusing on the excellence of our product, but also we believe that one of the most exciting things about this space is the fact that it is genuinely one of the for like decades now, this is suddenly a culinary frontier that's exploding. There's so much innovation happening, and most people don't see it. Most people aren't living in Hackney and able to pop to 5 different pop-up vegan markets at the weekend. And so we believe our role is to really bring that kind of frothy excitement of new culinary excellence and make it available much more broadly.
And are you at the stage, JP, now where are you making everything, or are you outsourcing the manufacture?
Oh yeah, really good question. So it's just over a year ago now where we built our first kitchen, and that has been something we've been growing into over the last year, and we've actually expanded it twice. We've got very lucky that next door units have been available, and then we've kind of grown the kitchen as we've gone. And so we make every single meal at All Plants, and we also design and develop every single recipe. And that's not something that's going to change. So this year we're already hunting for, and we will be developing and launching our phase 2 kitchen, to allow us to continue to make both more of the same, but then a lot broader variety of meals and of eats that we think can excite and ignite more plant-powered people.
But it's not just you and Alex physically making every single order, though, is it? So you've got staff that you can't just.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah. We've got such a brilliant team. We're just amazing people across the board, not just in our kitchen, but beyond that. But in our kitchen, I mean, I was, for example, yesterday running the kitchen. And we have around 15 to 17 chefs and staff in the kitchen, all fantastically trained and just really passionate about making great food every time.
Perfect. So you've decided to keep it in-house rather than outsource the making of it. Cool.
It's the most important thing. We like the idea of us just being a recipe designer and then doing a bit of branding and marketing. It doesn't it doesn't go anywhere close to us being able to realize and impact, the world and inspire the next billion plant-powered people as we set out to do.
Got it. Now, I know you're big on collaboration, and that's quite a bit of a buzzword now in marketing circles. And I know, you team up with lots of people that are interested in the same sort of thing. So can you just talk a little bit about the importance of collaboration and how it's benefited all plants?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the really exciting things about this space is that there's just, actually, funnily enough, you started talking off earlier about the amount of kind of effectively competition that you could think that there is, but the reality is that we're all working towards the same goal, and we are all trying our best to effectively convince and inspire a whole country at the moment, for us in the UK, and then a whole world, into the awesomeness of plant-powered living. And so, we really don't think that we should be or can be a single voice in that. We believe there's a brilliant dialogue going on, and there's so many people who are inventing awesomeness from a food perspective, or from a fashion perspective, or a lifestyle perspective, also who are just translating these things into something really easy to follow. So there's a number of our most dedicated customers who are PTs with Reebok CrossFit, or they do private physical training, and they are designing health and wellness programs for their clients that are all around plant-based living. And so we really want to celebrate all of these people, all of these creators and makers and doers in the space, and allow them to, either through and with All Plants, or just talk about what they're doing on All Plants, to show all of the amazing work that's going on. So that's been great. And you mentioned some of our good friends earlier, for example, like the Bosch Boys.
Yes.
And Henry and Ian in the first year of All Plants were super involved with us, and we continue to work together very closely and have a lot of fun doing it. And there's only positive things that can come from that. So we feel really lucky that what we're trying our best to do is create a platform where, either through our food or through tips and nourishing inspiration, people can kind of learn more to fuel their journey into plant power. Because it's not an easy path, and so the more we can provide there, the easier we can make it.
Absolutely. Now, you've been using the term plant-based. Your company's called All Plants, and I ask people this question as well. And I've actually just written an article. It's just been published on Forbes with this very question: should you use the word vegan or plant-based, or how prominently should you use it? And what are your thoughts on that?
One of the earliest pieces that we had clarity on was that we believe that the V word, if you like,
yes,
is steeped in so many legacy preconditions and pre-programmed beliefs that are going to be, we believe that they're far too hard for us to change the dialogue on. Whether it's the perspective that everything's so bland and boring and weird, whether it's that it's judgmental and pious and kind of like hippie sandal wearing, or whether it's this newer version, which is kind of like clean eating and holier than thou. We found through speaking to thousands of people that it is actually a turnoff. And I have to admit, Katrina, when I was a vegetarian, if someone said to me, "Oh, do you want to go check out this vegan restaurant?" I genuinely, I've said in the past, years ago, I would say, "I don't know about vegan. It's a bit, that's not really my thing," which is bizarre now. When I think about it now, it's just like, well, what was I talking about? But that's because I had these preconceptions, and because it had this like weird negative connotations. And so for us, we realized that one of the things we really wanted to achieve was to kick out that whole dialogue of, "Oh, this is boring, this is bland, this isn't cool and aspirational, it's etc." And reset that whole conversation. And actually, plant-based is one way to talk about it. We actually far more now talk about plant-powered. And actually, that's where the name All Plants came from. We it started as a project name, and we just found that it was a really easy way that genuinely, when I go into a restaurant and then I say, oh, sorry, have you got any all plants meals? And it often, the waiter's like, sorry, what? And I'm saying, anything that's purely made of plants. And they're like, okay, let me, and it often avoids them getting their back up and being like, oh, flipping vegans,
Yeah,
So for us, we think it's really important to try to redefine the dialogue. And, in some ways, from an informational perspective, it's really important that we make sure that everyone knows, by the way, everything we make is 100% like cool for vegans. Like, don't worry, there's nothing like this is fully vegan. Like, don't worry about it. But we don't want to be leading with that from a brand and communication perspective, because it makes it more accessible.
Got it.
And our role, we believe, is to try to bring in the if people say that the UK has 500,000 vegans, which is definitely way lower than the truth now. If the people say that, then fine. We're trying to get the other 59.5 million people to start eating a little bit more plants and convincing them that's a cool thing and a healthy thing and a delicious thing to do.
Yeah, got it. So final couple of questions to wrap up. No, that's great. I love getting people's perspectives on that, because there's lots of different responses depending on the time of the business.
And what was the overall, like, did you have an overall outcome from that article you wrote?
No, I mean, basically I ask everyone on the podcast, I've got a whole chapter about it in my book, and there's so many different perspectives. So it depends on the type of business, whether it's a food product, whether it's a service provider. I'll send you a link to the article, but it was very different. It all comes down to your audience and your mission and everything. So so no, I love what you said there. So just final couple of questions. So can you just talk a little bit about some of the marketing strategies you use to grow all plants? Because I think one of the things you mentioned was supper clubs, which is kind of quite unusual and interesting. So can you just talk a little bit about the marketing strategies you use to raise the profile of all plants?
Absolutely. So supper clubs was what we spent the majority of our time doing in the first year, because it was a way to very quickly recipe develop and recipe test, and then observe people while they were eating our food and see genuinely what did they talk about, what did they like, what didn't they like. And it was also a lot of fun, but flipping exhausting.
I can imagine. Wouldn't it be expensive, like hiring venues and stuff like that? It sounds like a perfect way to do it. Yeah,
so we managed to, one of my neighbours, very close to where I live, she runs a cafe. She's an absolute legend. She was totally up for us basically moonlighting after dark in her place for free, and and doing it just because it was fun. And obviously we did all the work, and she gave us the space. So
cool.
So again, that comes back to like being really scrappy and bootstrappy and just trying to find cheap ways to make things happen. So that was it. That was really important as a kind of product development thing. And then in terms of
so who did you
marketing,
get along to them? Like, were they just family and friends, or could friends ask their friends?
Yeah, exactly. Started as family and friends, and basically kind of almost popping up at any family event and just taking over and feeding 30 people all of our meals type thing. It was a lot of fun. But then after that,
did you find did you find they were honest with you? Because you can imagine, like, if it's family and friends, they might, and you've made something, it's quite hard to actually tell someone you like or you love, actually, I don't like this, or it's too salty. Did you find that they were prepared to be honest with you?
I tell you what, if you met my mother, you wouldn't be worried about that at all.
Oh, really?
There's no holds barred. Like I get phone call, we get emails from our parents are obviously on a subscription, and they'll if one of the dishes has changed slightly, we will hear about it.
Oh, really?
So like,
yeah. Funny. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is really helpful. That's exactly what you need and want. So
okay.
But then and then we gradually expanded it and started asking people to invite a group of people we didn't even know and didn't know anything about us. And so we were doing kind of guest supper clubs for whole crowds of kind of 12 to 15 people. And then we'd only introduced what we were and what we were doing afterwards, so that they weren't influenced during. And everyone was filling out these little kind of notes cards during and discussing the meals. Yeah. So that was really, really, really fun.
And were they mainly vegan or vegetarian or omnivores, or did you have a mix?
A real mix. Deliberately, we wanted to make sure we had a good representative of vegan and veggies. So we definitely had more than your typical population represented. But then we had tons of, just omnivores and I guess the audience that I always refer to as plant curious, who, who are just kind of, sometimes I eat veggie or vegan, but, I also like a bit of this and that. So, and those are the people we really wanted to hear the opinion of. And are we really convincing them as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And then since that, we really haven't started doing what I would call kind of proper programmatic growth, and like really buttoning down on your classic marketing channels and doing working hard on it. And that's because in last year our whole focus has been about making a brilliant product and trying to create something that people love and prove that that's a fact. And so during that period, the majority of our marketing has been organic. It's been word of mouth. It's been through working with communities. You talked about collaborations. So, Matthew and Jane at Veganuary, we love them to bits, and they're fantastic, and we've worked closely with them, with the Meat Free Monday crew, with a number of other brands who are not specifically vegan, but they're serving that space. So, for example, Will's Vegan Shoes, and then and beyond that, just kind of trying to start building a bit of a presence on the various social channels and taking it from there.
Got it. So with the 800K investment, was that used to develop product, or have you still got some of that left to like do marketing with?
Yeah, so that we all sorts really. I mean, that was funding to allow us to invest in team, in building the kitchen and the warehousing and distribution center out, like growing those. In, as you mentioned, continuing to develop new recipes and innovate into new categories, and to then just give us the time to really build a movement and build a following. And so we're going to be continuing to do that through the rest of this year, and we're really excited about that because we can now, as I said, really start to kind of experiment with more deliberate and programmatic growth. And start to have a much bigger impact. Last year, at the close of the year, we found that we'd almost served in total 100,000 meals. Which
that's amazing!
Was kind of when we looked at the numbers, we were like, whoa, how did we make all that food? That's insane. And the exciting thing is that it's speeding up. Like this month will be around 20,000 meals in January, and so things. As with any early stage startup, really start to hit a growth curve, and so we're just trying to make sure that we're building a brilliant team of really passionate, talented people who are on our mission and want to really impact the world and make a difference, and then keep focusing on creating fantastic food and exciting people.
Wonderful, fantastic. I think that's a really good place to end. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jonathan. You shared some really JP, I should say. You sent some, shared some really good intel there. I think will be really helpful to other people, and love what you're doing. And it's all very exciting. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Katrina, all the way across the country, of the globe, actually.
And it doesn't sound like it, does it? It sounds like you're just like in the next room or something, but fantastic. So that was Jonathan Petrides from Allplants. You can find out more at allplants.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 98. Now for our vegan business news roundup. A vegan product has been named Best Easter Egg by UK magazine Good Housekeeping. The egg is actually a hand-painted egg-shaped box filled with hazelnut truffles by vegan brand Buja Buja. A team of 80 testers ate 142 eggs in a blind test to find the best across categories including Best for Kids and Best Novelty Eggs. The Buja Buja treat, which is also gluten-free, received the highest overall score across 8 categories in the magazine's annual taste test. It won, according to the judges, because of its smooth truffle filling and elegant hand-painted velvet-lined box. Fantastic that a vegan product beat out all these other non-vegan ones. I've said this before, it's always good to enter competitions and ensure that your product is included in this kind of thing. Even if you don't win, it gets your product in front of journalists and other influencers, and of course if you do win, you get free publicity and the kudos. Vegan lipstick brand The Lip Bar has debuted in Target stores in select cities across the US, including New York City, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Chicago and Dallas, reports Veg News. Founder Melissa Butler launched the company in 2012 while working in finance on Wall Street to fill a gap in the market for bold lipsticks for women of all skin tones. She appeared on the hit US TV show Shark Tank in 2015 to seek investment for a mobile beauty truck, but was rejected by the sharks and told the Lip Bar would never become a major brand. After bootstrapping the business for 6 years, Butler says she's now ready for outside investment to grow the business. The Lip Bar line, which includes 2 shades made exclusively for Target that retail at an average price of $13, is currently available on Target.com and will expand to 100 stores by May this year. That's 2018 if you're listening in the future. I love this story because it shows resilience, especially in the face of such high-profile public rejection. I love that Melissa is having the last laugh, and it just goes to show that when one door closes, it's not necessarily the end of the world, and you can create other opportunities. Lovely, inspiring story. Finally, UK cheese brand Shees and US plant-based protein company Tofurky are launching in a big way in Australia this month. That's February 2018. Both brands announced partnerships with Australia's largest retailer, Woolworths, this week. Shees blocks, slices and shreds will be rolling out across Woolworths stores from the 26th of February. Director Mark Crichton said, "Just like the UK, plant-based is booming down under, and 2018 looks likely to set new records as more and more people awaken to the benefits of plant-based products." Meanwhile, Tofurky founder Seth Tibbett said in a video that the company is bringing 4 of its products, including deli slices, vegan chicken, sausages and hot dogs, to Woolworths stores nationwide as part of the supermarket chain's expanded plant-based goods section. Well, that's good news for me, as well as for these brands. It's great to see ethical vegan brands expand and become available to even more people. And of course, it's fantastic to see major supermarket chains extending their plant-based options. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more free resources as well as details of how we can work together to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.